think it's been about 3 years now. I did a video showing you how to install chicken wire fence the easy way because there aren't many videos out there, and what I learned about chicken wire, it is a pain to work with unless you do it a specific way. Add in the fact that you have sloped ground, it gets even tougher. So I'm going to take you guys along as I add another section of chicken wire fence out here to show you more tips so you can make a chicken wire fence, and I'm also going to explain why I prefer chicken wire. So before we get started, this is why I choose chicken wire. I have a fence here. This is 5-foot chicken wire. It's only 4 feet high, but I take that extra 12 inches down here and we flare it out on the ground, and we either let the grass grow through it or we bury it in chips here. And that means nothing can get in my garden except for small rodents. Woodchucks can't get in there. No rabbits. And for some reason, the deer have not even attempted to jump this. They can. It's only 4 feet high, but I guess it's just enough to stop them. Let's talk about these first points because these are really important. First thing you want to do is determine how high you want your fence. I'm going with a 4-foot high fence. I need 5-foot chicken wire. You want your chicken wire 1 foot taller than your fence in order to get that little overlap on the bottom to keep the critters out. That is also going to dictate your post size that you use in the ground. I'm using 6.5-foot tall posts, and every single post is buried 18 inches in the ground. Now, it don't matter if you're super high here, super low over there. Put every single post 18 inches in the ground. I'm low here, and over on that side, it actually comes up a little bit in the middle and goes back down. The original fence is a great example. You can see how tall these posts are. And then if you go further down there, that ground is really low, but all these posts are buried the same depth, 18 inches. When I set my post, I am a big fan of using fast setting Quikrete, but not a lot. I usually put my post in and I have hard clay soil. So I take that, I'll take a 2x4 and mash in the bottom to get this standing by itself. I'll level it. Then I'll put about maybe 2 or 3 inches of Quikrete in there, let it set, and then cover the rest of the clay up. I would recommend at least on your corners. So these ones here, those should be Quikrete in. These need to be super sturdy for this installation method. With the 18-inch depth in the Quikrete on at least the corner posts, put your fence wherever you want it to go. And a quick hack for all you gardeners right here. I am taking cardboard. I've drilled 3.5-inch holes through the cardboard with a hole saw, slipped it down over the post. This is going to give me a nice border all the way along here. I'm gonna fill the rest in with cardboard here. I'm about 9 inches to center in there. And the reason I'm doing this, I can show you over here. When I first did the garden, I did not put cardboard here. We put cardboard after the fact. So look at all this grass. This is rhizome spreading grass right here. If I would have had cardboard down, that would take care of that. Now it is too late. But since we're adding this fence, a lot of this is gonna come down. We'll be able to smother this with cardboard and clean it up. Let's take a look at the tools we're gonna need here. We're gonna need a set of tin snips to cut our chicken wire. We need a hammer. The hammer is gonna be used to set these poultry staples here. These poultry staples are going to hold this to the post. What I have here is electric fence wire. Now this is 17 gauge. I think I used 14 originally for this fence, but this is going to work just fine. This is a 1/4 mile of wire here. It's strong enough for what we need it to do. Going to need a tape measure, the old screwdriver, the cheater. Take this and we pry the chicken wire to get it nice and tight. Doesn't even have to be a screwdriver, just something solid and metal. I got these for a dual purpose. I'm going to be able to use these to spin this electric fence wire and also to cut it. Got some staples and a staple gun to staple the chicken wire to all our posts. Big fat Sharpie to make marks. Got some cable ties here. These are going to be really important. A lot of people have been saying that the sun is going to make these brittle and they're going to fall apart. 3 years later, my tie wraps are not falling apart. These are the cheapest tie wraps I could find at the farm store. And the most important tool of all, the old line laser. Now this is something that you can probably rent from the hardware store, find a buddy that has it. This is the most important thing you're going to use to install this chicken wire here. Now I use these at work, so I had to get one for myself, and I use this all the time for different projects. If there's one thing you need, it is the line laser. The line laser is going to give us a nice level plane to put our chicken wire in, and that is going to be really important, and you'll see why later in this video. We got our tools ready, we got all of our posts put in, and I forgot to mention too, good spacing on these wooden posts, about 10 feet for chicken wire. If you are not working with a flat surface here and you have areas of your yard that are higher than the others, and you probably do, even if it's a couple inches, that's going to make a huge difference when you go to put this chicken wire in here. It's going to get really sloppy and you're going to get mad. Go through here, find the lowest spot of your chicken wire fence. For me, that would be back here. It's a lot lower here than it is up there. So if I was setting a new area here and I did not have any of this, I would find the lowest spot here. And since I want my fence to be 4 feet high and then the 1 foot flare with the 5 foot chicken wire, I'd take a measurement. I'd put 48 inches, 4 feet right here. With the lowest post in my whole fencing system marked at 4 feet, this is where the laser comes in. I will take that laser, I will put it on something metal since it's magnetic, or take a screw it to something around here, shine that laser on here. And it's best to do this towards the evening because the laser is hard to see in the sun unless you got a cloudy day. But once you get that line laser on here and it's level, this is where you come back and make a line on all of these posts going down. One thing you'll notice, you take that Sharpie on that red laser line on all of these, you start seeing you're gonna get this big gap up here. And that is gonna be completely okay because we can do transitions, which I'll talk about later in this video. You see here, I ran out of posts there and we have a lower one. This chicken wire is installed at an angle. That's something we fix later. This is our first level here. Lowest post, 4 foot. Your whole entire fence, put a Sharpie mark at that level on all these. Off the laser, not a tape measure, because this height changes a lot depending on the ground. With all our posts marked with that 4 foot level off the lowest spot with a flat line, regardless of height, going across here, we're going to grab our electric fence wire and walk to the lowest point. We're gonna go ahead here, got the electric fence wire, just gonna let it rest on the ground, pull a bunch out. Then I'm just gonna take her like so. I'm gonna give myself about 2 foot of slack or so past this post, and we're gonna start out on the outside. I'm gonna give myself a wrap around the top, a wrap around the bottom. Trying to keep this nice and even on that Sharpie mark we set. Then I take her and I am going to crisscross it over. And you see, she's got a little slack on her. This is where these are gonna come in handy. Now you can use any pliers for this, but the same way you spun this around, you're gonna wanna grab this nice and close to the fence post. Hold on tight and just spin her. Now with this thinner wire, I'm not gonna go crazy or else it is gonna snap. This is just a nice guide wire for our chicken wire fence to set us up.
So that we can have a bigger garden.
A little bit left over here. I'll just chop her off. And then to get her nice and solid here, this is where the poultry staples come in. I'm gonna go ahead, take this poultry staple right on the outside, hammer it in. And look at that, that is a nice tight wire. And watch how fast this is gonna go now. Here's a starter post, here's my wire. I'm just gonna pick her up and walk it all the way to the farthest corner. All right, now we are at the far end from our original post. And if you check out this post over here, I got a Sharpie mark. And because of the line laser, this mark here is even with the mark all the way over there. Not even with the ground, but it is perfectly level, and that's what we're looking for. I can take this wire and just give her a stretch all the way from over there. And to make my life easier, I'm gonna give her a stretch, and I'm gonna take about maybe a little more than 2 foot or so past this post and just give her a snip. We're gonna take this wire, We're gonna pull as hard as we can with it. If you want extra leverage, you can wrap it around your hand here. As hard as you can pull that wire. Then you wanna make it nice and even with this Sharpie mark. Then I am going to walk around this post. Give her a wrap over the top, under the bottom, and across. In just the same way we did it over there. We're gonna take this tag end right here, just loop it around. You'll notice she's got some slack on her, but we're gonna fix that now. We're gonna take these, in the same way we were spinning it originally, we are going to grab that and just give her a crank. And once again, we're not gonna go nuts with this because this wire could snap and that's not fun. Now have a look at this. We're right on our Sharpie mark. Here, our wire is kind of floating in the air, but look what we got here. We got Sharpie marks here, here. Every post has a mark on it that is the flat line going all the way down. So now we're gonna come back all the way along here. If I take this wire, it's got some play in it, we got a Sharpie mark. We're going to lift this up. I've loaded my pocket with some poultry staples. Put the wire right on the Sharpie mark, and we're just gonna drive her home. We're gonna do this on every single post going down.
Make a new garden whenever we want.
So now we have the staples in here. We have a wire that's nice and tight going at the same level the whole length of our fence. Now if we take a look at the old chicken wire fence here, you're gonna see this chicken wire has a guide wire. This guide wire happens every 12 inches. This is all gonna make sense later in the video, but for now, let's go ahead with a tape measure here. Off our original line, we're gonna measure down 12 inches. Put a mark right there in our post. And then going even lower from that next mark, another 12 inches down. You're gonna keep going down until you can't get 12 inches anymore. You'll start to see that this installation starts to get a little redundant, but that's good. We're getting a lot of practice here, and in no time, you're gonna be a pro. One of the things you're gonna notice is some of your posts have more marks than others. That is fine. Go as low as you can with these marks. And then you also wanna go back, and if you have a post and you have vertical height, measure 12 inches up from there and put marks as well. Like this guy right here. I measure up 12. I got enough space, so we'll mark that there. And it looks like a few of these middle posts will have that same distance as well, and we start losing it as we get further down. With your mark set, you're gonna install guide wires, just like we did this first one. Anywhere you have marks, install guide wires on every single post. Here's a decent example here. This is my old garden gate. Here's the old fence. Came through here. I have guide wires every 12 inches on here. We're gonna do the same thing with this whole area. I've got all these guide wires finished. You look here, this is our original wire. We came up 12 inches here. So we do have some sections here that have more wires than others. But we're getting ready to start putting some chicken wire on here, and all we're gonna focus on is that original wire that we started with off the lowest post, 4 feet up. After we get the main chicken wire done, we're gonna come back. I'm gonna show you how to add guide wires to this to get these transitional pieces. I'm back here at the original post we started with. This is where we're gonna start our chicken wire. This is gonna be the least fun of all the stuff we have to do. I have my staple gun here, loaded up with some staples, gonna set her up there. I got a pocket full of tie wraps. This is the way I like to position my chicken wire. I want it open on this side so I can pull it and roll it that way. Start out by taking some of this chicken wire out like this, and I wanna go a little past this post here. This is where our guide wire comes in. See the top of this chicken wire right here? That's gonna line up right with the top of this guide wire. So I'm gonna go ahead right here, and I'm gonna lean this against the guide wire. Staple gun. I'm going to start a staple, top of the chicken wire, right at my Sharpie mark here. Put a couple in there, and then using this pattern, I'm looking at the center of my post right here, and I can see that these notches going down here look like they're center of the post. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to pop a few more in here just to get me started. This is the make or break part of installing this. You want this to be nice and straight here, especially if your posts are level, which they should be. And now that we got a couple in here just to hold us up, this is where I'm going to take my tie wrap. I'm going to put a tie wrap here to get the top of my chicken wire ready to follow this guide wire along. Then I can take this chicken wire right here. I'm going to roll it over to the next post. Now, there's no easy way to do this. They do make some tractor implements where you can set this on here and help it roll it out. But I'm just going to kind of lift it and twist it as I go. And the whole time I'm doing this, I'm trying to keep the top of this even with my top guide wire. And now we're going to return over here, and I'm going to use my tie wraps to every 3 feet or so. Just give myself a tie wrap. I'm not going to tighten it all the way. I'm going to keep it a little loose for now. These are just to help me get this fence started. We're keeping it loose because we're going to need this to slide so we can get rid of some of the slack in here. So I'll set some across the top wire here, and then our 12-inch spacing down here puts us right on the chicken wire guide wire. I'll come in here, same thing. I'm going to use a tie wrap and our electric fence line that we put in here. I'm going to tie wrap that to the guide wire of the chicken wire. And you'll see as we do this that we're going to be taking some of this slack out. If the wire's not fighting you, you might as well go ahead and go down to the next level. Keep going down till you start noticing that you're fighting the chicken wire. You'll see here everything just starts pulling itself together. We're off to a great start here. Got all our tie wraps on the chicken wire guide wire to our electric fence guide wire that we set in here. We're using these honeycombs here to make sure we're nice and straight on this post. Now that we are secure here, we can come back, add a couple more staples in there to keep us on the right track here. And I'm just gonna keep repeating this process. Go to the next post, come back, put some more tie wraps in here. As much as I'd like to show you guys me doing about 160 feet of this stuff, I'm gonna get these last tie wraps in these 2 sections here, and I think at that point we'll be ready to go back to the beginning. I'm gonna show you how we add some tension to this to flatten it out so it looks really nice. I'm back at the original post now. We're gonna finish this one off. So once again, I'm just lining up my honeycombs here to make sure everything is nice and straight and tight all the way down. Our guide wires line up with our electric fence wire. Tight down there, we're at the second post here. This is where the screwdriver is going to come in handy. A little metal cheater here. So all these honeycombs here, I can take this screwdriver. I'm going to stick it in here. I'm going to use this to pull this tight. Not crazy tight, just enough to get some of the slack out here. And once I pull it, I'm going to make sure I am lined up. Give her a few staples up top here. Again, I'm going to use the honeycombs on the chicken wire to make sure I am straight with my level post here. If I'm not straight on here, I'm going to use this to pull this tighter. But just eyeing up my top here, this honeycomb right here goes straight down. I can go ahead, get her nice and secure on there, just following the pattern all the way down this post. Tie wraps here, I didn't really have to tweak this too much because it was pulling itself together real nice. Then I'll come back here. Anywhere I notice any slack, I'm just going to use more tie wraps in here. When you're satisfied, you're going to come back through here. We're going to tighten up all these tie wraps here. And you're not going to want to just cut your tie wraps. You could do that, it's going to leave a sharp edge. So if you take something like this, you put it on your tie wrap, you grab this part here, and you just twist it. And after a couple twists, it pops right off and leaves a nice clean edge on here. This is what we got here. There's a little bit of slack in this, but if I take my foot and pull down on this, all that slack disappears in here. That's going to be for later in the video when we talk about pinning this to the ground. Now all that's left to do is keep going with this chicken wire for about another 100 feet or so. We've applied the technique to this whole area here, and I'm at this corner post with my chicken wire. Now, instead of trying to wrap around here and fight this, I find it a lot easier to cut this, but we want to cut this so we set us up to have an easy time with this roll of chicken wire when we continue. We want to make a straight cut on here. As I've done to every post along here, I'm using this screwdriver to pull the top tight, and I'm lining up the top of the chicken wire with that guide wire. And then I am going to put a few staples in here to get it nice and secure. Now using these tin snips, I'm going to go maybe about an inch or so past this, and I'm going to make a cut. And I am going to follow this hive pattern all the way down and make my cut in the same spot all the way down here. But just follow the pattern. Come back through here and just secure it like we did to all the other posts. Here somewhere I will definitely be adding more tie wraps in here. You can see we got a little bit of play. But what you can do is push this in towards the post here, and instead of going directly on the front of the post, put some staples more towards the side of it to really pull this tight. So that'll be for the cleanup. Once we get this all set up, we'll come back through here and fix any of those small imperfections. I've gone through, I've put in all my chicken wire around the outsides here, so the last thing we have left is transitions. And I've been putting a lot of thought into these transitions and how much I want to go into it. So my fence here, it's 4 foot like I wanted. We had that extra foot up top, so I put another guide wire here. Now the plan was to make this flow into these corners here, but in order for me to do that, I'm gonna have to do that this whole length, and just for the fact I want to save chicken wire, and I have a different idea for this. We're gonna weave some vines and sticks. We're gonna utilize these posts to extend them with some branches, set a bunch of bird houses in here. So I'm only gonna do a transition in this area right here. Okay, so the existing fence comes along there. We have this wire that goes across there. Now, because of the big slope here, we had to set the wires here. And this is where we came up with this gap right here and up top. So the plan is to get a sloping transition from there to here, then from here to there, just so we get a nice even angle down, and we're gonna leave this that same height, and it matches up with the very back to continue that height to the existing fence. So the electric fence wire is back. I'm gonna go to this low spot right here. I'm gonna tie the wire here, and I'm going to add an angle, bring it up to meet where this guide wire lands right here. Same concept, gonna twist her up nice and tight in here, take her up at an angle, crank this down, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. So now we got a nice guide wire at an angle here, and we're going to fill in those leftover gaps with chicken wire. With our 12-inch spacing, we know we need 12-inch wide pieces of wire to fill these gaps. So to get a proper length of my chicken wire, I've used this tire full of dirty water to hold it down on that side, and I've rolled it between the two posts. Now, if you remember, we only need 12-inch wide pieces of wire to fill in these gaps on this transition here. So I've gone ahead, I've started making a cut so this whole length is big enough to fill this space, but I'm not gonna go all the way through here. So I wanna keep this factory end here. What we're gonna do is take this factory end, we're gonna tie wrap it to our level wire. Then we're gonna kind of fold it up. So the end that gets folded up is gonna be folded over that guide wire. So if it has some weird ends, that's okay, but we want the factory ends to line up on our level side. So this is gonna be a long, tedious cut where I go the length of this, and I'm gonna cut just on this side of the guide wire of the chicken wire. Okay, I got my 12-inch roll of chicken wire right here. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna find the factory end. The factory end is going to go down and meet up with our level original wire we have installed on here. I'm gonna try to line this up here, and I'm gonna use tie wraps because it's gonna help me out a lot here. I'm gonna get this kind of even with the center here. And since we are on the factory end, I take this tie wrap and I'm gonna get this tie wrap here started to help hold this up. One right here, a couple feet over. Same as we did with all the others. I'm going to make this nice and even, follow the pattern of the honeycombs here, get her nice and lined up, put some staples in here to get it started. Then I'm just gonna walk her along. Same thing as before. Every few feet we'll throw a tie wrap in there to hold this even. Now we want our original guide wire in both of our factory ends of this chicken wire to match up right on that original level guide wire. We want this angled guide wire we just installed on the inside of the fence. Pull this nice and tight just like we did everything else, where in this case it's pretty good and I can just use my hand and fingers to pull this across. Don't go up too high because a lot of this stuff above this wire here is going to go away. We head back to the beginning here. We're going to take this, we're going to pull it up, and we're going to wrap it over this wire and fold it. And as we go along here and wrap and fold, you'll see some of these pieces meet up right here. I'll go ahead and throw a tie wrap in there. Just pulling up to get her nice and tight. Go ahead and just on the inside of the post here, I'm gonna cut this. Some more tie wraps in here. And here's where you got a choice to make. You can either take this slack, fold it over, throw some more tie wraps down in here and kind of blends in. Or you can come back and a couple inches below this, cut this off. Just go ahead and these pieces fold it over here. Throw a couple extra tie wraps in here. And here's what it looks like with all the tie wraps off. Got this nice flat line here. We got angled ground. Look at this. We're even there, and our top does a nice slope. Just kind of folded it over and tie wrapped it onto itself. Now we have to come back in here and do that last section where we meet this up with that. I'd say we are looking pretty good right here. Got this nice even transition right here that just meets up with this fence. There's one more thing I'm going to show you, and this is for the gardeners that want to keep animals out of the garden. As you may recall, we left our fence a little longer so we could drape it out away from the garden here. And the plan with this is to take our foot, step on this, and it's going to put some tension against this fence and tighten it up. And what you want to do is go along the whole length of this fence like this. And you want to get some lawn staples, which I don't have. So I'm going to try using some of this electric fence wire and see if it works out. But you're just going to go through here and pin it down Yeah, that works pretty good. And step on it. You want to be really generous with these. You want to get all this as flat to the ground as possible, vertical from the fence down. You'll notice too when you step on it and pull this down, it'll take any extra slack out of this fence. But once you pin this down, this grass is going to grow through this fence. And if any digging animal comes and sees this fence, it's going to start digging right next to the fence. It's going to hit this wire and quit. I've watched many woodchucks come up to the garden fence and try to dig their way in and give up. You can come back and put some wood chips along your fence, kind of like we have here, or you can leave it pinned to the ground and let the grass come up. If you came over here, you'd never know that there is chicken wire about this far out here. It just blends right in with the grass, and you can take a mower right over it because you start building soil on there too, and it starts sinking down a little bit. There's a lot of tips in this video that can help anyone be successful putting up a chicken wire fence. It's probably the cheapest way to put up a fence you can do. If you take anything from this video, I just want you to realize how important that line laser is for this installation, as well as the tie wraps. The tie wraps are gonna help you do this a lot easier. Trust me, spend the money on them. As I used a line laser on the original garden, it was really easy for me to take those same levels here and move them out to here. Like I said at the beginning, this is a renewed video, one of the first videos I ever made installing chicken wire. It's a little more in depth here. If you can't remember anything, just rewind and take a look at it again. It's all these basic skills I showed you, you just put them all together and you should be able to handle this. This is going to be a lot longer than most of my videos, so hopefully you enjoyed this and learned something, and thanks for watching.